Welcome to the Beauty Pro Wellness Podcast, the podcast that mixes wellness with personal development tips and info specifically for beauty industry professionals. I'm your host, Abby O'Sullivan, a longtime esthetician and lash artist turned wellness coach. With burnout and health issues on the rise amongst my beauty pro friends, I know we need a space to come together, to learn, support each other, and get the push you need to take care of your health. Together, we'll dive into topics like mobility training for a less achy body, managing stress in the chaos of running a business and handling clients, setting up your self-care routines, and so much more. You deserve to feel as good as your clients do when they leave you. Let's make time for you, starting with this podcast. Welcome back to the Beauty Pro Wellness Podcast. Have you ever found yourself scrolling social media and you actually feel worse once you finally jump off? Like you've gotten into a scroll hole of doom and started comparing yourself to other people in your industry, started feeling not good enough. And then you have no idea what you should post or what you should talk about on social media. Well, today I'm going to be discussing just that with my special guest, lash industry educator and coach, Tress Larson. We're going to talk about overcoming burnout, self-doubt, and comparison, and really mental health and social media. We do go off on a couple of tangents because that is the way that it goes. Tress is going to share a lot of her own personal journey with you, and we're just going to have a really candid conversation about social media, about being introverts, and showing up as your authentic self. Let me tell you a little bit more about Tress before we jump into the podcast. Over the last 20 years, Tress has gone from an anxious, depressed, and doubting service provider in the beauty industry to a leader, trainer, and coach. Her greatest hope is that the hardships and pain that she has gone through will be used for good to help others not only get through this industry, but thrive in it. Tress is passionate about sharing her experiences with others so that they can know that they aren't alone and that there is hope for the future. Please welcome Tress Larson to the podcast. Welcome, Tress, to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, this is a conversation that is pretty near and dear to my heart too. We're going to be talking about burnout and self-doubt and comparison in the lash industry. And I know that I have struggled with this personally for burnout, especially. I talk about that quite a bit, but also just, like the mental health part of that and what comes along with there's the physical symptoms and there's also emotional and mental, but that can come from many different sources in our career, not just the physical burnout that then affects our mental health. It's important for us to not feel like we're alone when we're going through that in the lash industry, in those times in our lives. And from the outside, if I'm following you and I'm looking at you, which I have, it can be easy to think that you are somebody who's just super confident, you have it all together, you have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And as you've been sharing on social media, we see that, we see the highlight reel and yet logically, we know, everyone has their struggles, but everyone does. You're sharing, that's not always been the case. It may not always be the case today. So I do believe everyone does have a story. So I would love to hear yours, how you've overcome the self-doubt, imposter syndrome, or comparing yourself and anxiety in your career and in your life to what you're doing now, coaching others through the same, and what makes you so passionate about that. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, okay, that's a wide topic and I'm going to try to bring it in. I guess I've found in my midlife area where I'm in right now, so the last several years, I've found that my failures and my defeats and my mistakes are my superpower, because I'm able to take every one of those things that I've gone through, the pain and the suffering, and, go, okay, if I share this with the world, then I can help others feel like they're not alone, because I spent so much of my life feeling alone.
Mm-hmm.
and whether or not I was physically alone, which most of the time I wasn't, right? I've been with my husband for 15 years. And before that, I was married and divorced young. And I've been through severe anxiety, severe depression, like debilitating social anxiety, right? I would have panic attacks in groups of people and just not want to leave my house. And there was just always this light at the end of the tunnel. There was always this like person I knew I wanted to become. And I had this like really clear vision of her, right? Like I knew that she was possible. And so like that always is something that I held on to. But throughout everything, even when I was going through like the deepest, darkest times, what like personally, right? Not necessarily career related, when I would share those things with other people, I would find that their response to me was being drawn to me instead of like giving distance, right? And it wasn't because I was sitting there going, oh, poor me. It's because I was sitting there going, wow, life is really freaking hard right now, but I'm going to get through it. And then they would share their pain with me. And it became this cycle of like, I can really impact people's lives for the positive, not by having all of the answers, even though I'm seeking them out, right? And I want to have answers, but I can really impact people's lives just by having them see me from the outside and go, oh, you look like you're all together. Well, you know what? I have ADHD and spreadsheets make my brain scramble, you know, like there are so many things that I do not have together. Like my space looks super clean here, but you don't see what's over there. And so I want to be able to like shed the light on those things because it's like the commonality that brings everybody together, in my opinion. Nobody's perfect. Everybody fails. Everybody has mistakes. Everybody has pain. And it's the one thing that we share with like the rest of human existence, you know?
Yeah. Shining a light on the messy parts that we don't see beyond our perfect little Zoom screens here.
Right. And
like the mess in my laundry room back there, you can't see.
Right. Or like I have a room right there and it is full of junk piled on top of each other because it doesn't have a home right now. You know, I literally told my husband right before we jumped on here, I was like, I think we just need to turn that whole room into storage. Like, because that's what it is right now anyway, you know? But I mean, like that brings me back to imposter syndrome that you mentioned, because imposter syndrome is something that I would say I struggled with a little bit when I was making my Instagram super perfect and when I was editing all of my photos and when people started coming to me going, I could never be like you. And I'm like, guys, I am just a girl from Minnesota who worked real hard, you know, like
yeah,
special in that way. And I had people like really lamenting that they could never be like me. And I was like, this does not feel okay. This is not why I'm in this world, right? I'm in this world to lift people up and help them feel beautiful and help them feel confident and feel like they can believe in themselves and their self-worth, right? And so the thing that I've been telling people lately, because it's so deeply true to me, is if you are being who you are publicly, if you are literally living your truth, there's no place for imposter syndrome to take root and grow. It can't exist there. You can have all of the success in the world. You can have a bunch of followers. You can have a super great, like running salon or even your small business, whatever your goal is. Just because you achieved it doesn't mean that you have to feel like an imposter. And I feel like it's been such a like trigger word lately. Like everybody's like, oh, I don't deserve the success I have imposter syndrome. And my question to them is always kindly and respectfully, are you showing up as who you are? And usually the answer is no. They're trying to show up in a way that some Instagram guru taught them to show up. Some coach told them they had to show up.
We were just talking about that earlier.
And it's not who they are. And so this imposter syndrome is like rampant. And it wasn't even, I don't even think it existed before social media. I mean, it probably did in a way, but like barely, you know?
Right. I mean, when I first started, it wasn't, I mean, there was like Facebook.
Same girl.
And I also shared a lot of food pictures, the cat pictures, and whatever else I was doing along with like my work here and there. But I was probably honestly like, I didn't use social media to build my business the first time, that's for sure. I did the second time around, but And it was a beautifully curated feed. And it was a lot of fun for me. But I also just used my natural voice and was very confident in my skills. But in other aspects of my career, it's definitely been like we were talking about being in a mentorship before we hit record. We were talking about being in me being in a mentorship, and it was for nutrition and health coaches, and how I was like feeling a lot of comparison and not good enough because everyone was like, quote, killing it, which was far from the actual truth. And I knew that logically, I knew like not everyone was killing it in there, but you see that and you're like, oh, I want to be cool too. And I want to get the praise too. And I want to be like, have awesome videos and like use the cool captions. I don't know, like all this dumb shit that doesn't really matter. And
Right.
it really fucked with my head a lot.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky to find a program that was like so incredibly different and kind of figure out like why I actually was seeking that out so bad, why I needed all that validation. So there's so much to be said for like just asking yourself like why do you not deserve it? Why do you not deserve to have success? Why aren't your videos good enough? Why is your work not good enough? Like really tell me why. Answer that question over and over and over again until you realize like you're wrong.
Right.
In
I
the
love
most
that.
loving way possible, you're wrong because you do like deserve success. We all do.
Yeah.
There's no reason. So yeah, I love that. Oh, jinx.
Well, it's funny because when I talk to people about like this comparison, right? Like I get like what you just said, I hear comparison, right? Because we are taught certain things, we observe certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say, why aren't your videos good enough? Why aren't your pictures good enough? When I ask people that, because it's a question I ask regularly now in what I'm doing, like when I ask people that, their answer is almost always because it's not like this person's or it's not like this person's.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when you break it down to the ridiculous, you aren't that person.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
never going to be the same. Like it's just, you don't have their brain, you don't have their hands, you don't have the way that you see things and express things. And in conjunction with that question, I'm asking consistently now, the people that you follow on social media that you really love and really want to engage with and want to be friends with, like in the real world, right? Those people, do they have perfectly curated feeds? And is everything they do perfect? Or do you just kind of like, what, I don't want to use this
Like
word, you just
hone
kind of
in.
lust after that,
Yeah.
right? Or are the people that you really deeply connect with, are they just like unapologetically who they are?
Yeah.
And
And
the
just
answer is
showing up
always,
however.
always, well, I love the people who are unapologetically who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so then my question is, then why shouldn't you be that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And and if you're thinking like, I'll take my videos aren't good enough, or like, well, how technically, how could I improve that? In the real sense. But like, do you actually have to or need to for people to pay attention or to be good enough or whatever? No, not really. And I think that this also speaks to sort of what I'm seeing shift in social media as well over like this last maybe years, maybe a little bit longer, maybe since COVID, not really sure. Like when we all were kind of like, listen, we're all at home in our sweats.
Right.
This is me, so like we're
Things
kind
got
of,
more real.
yeah, we're kind of like maybe bringing that to social media too. We're like, listen, if you love the perfect curated like aesthetic, like go for it by all means, like color coordination, you're a little hard out if that's what makes you happy. If it's what's hanging you up, look to the trends of like it's not even about that anymore. Really, people care less. And like you just said, they connect with the people who are really showing up, just like putting on their makeup in the morning or whatever. And I personally, I like don't ever want to do that because like the setup and I'm like, my bathroom, like I don't, it's like, as I still am like one of those, I'm like, no, I won't do that.
Yeah.
But I try to just like, you know, I guess, well, I don't want to talk about my journey right now because it's always in the midst and like I could go on and on. I want to talk about you. I was like, don't get off on a
I'm good
tangent
with
because we're
either.
going to be here for 30 minutes if you start talking about like how you feel about social media right now.
Right.
I'll save it for
Right.
a podcast episode.
That's okay. I was leaning in though. Like I
Yeah,
like
I know. I noticed and I was like, you know what? No. I'm backing out because actually I don't want to go there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just, I think the point is really is that it's kind of a journey and it's a constant evolution of just like getting to know yourself a little bit more and just adjusting and trying new things and really giving less fucks about like what other people might think or the numbers or whatever. And the more that you do it, like the easier it's going to get
right.
ish, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's true. So like posting on my Lash page is easy for me now. Like it is. I've been doing it consistently for 5 years. And that's pretty easy for me now. I spent so much time in the first 2 years learning though. I did want my page to look better. I did want to be able to present my work in a way that I actually saw it in real life, And so I feel like if you're at a place where you're posting pictures of lashes and you're like they're blurry and they look chunky, or you see like all of this light behind them or whatever, in that sense, yeah, take a class. You want to show up, if it's for your business, in my opinion, you do want to show up in a professional way. It just doesn't have to be overthought to the moon and back. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be that perfectly curated feed. It should represent you well.
Yeah.
Right.
And also like who's your audience that you're trying to quote impress? Is it other lash people? Because I feel like that is so much of what I see. And maybe it's because deep down, like there's so many people that really want to pivot into something else in the lash industry, and that's
Want to be a
cool.
trainer.
Yeah. Or like whatever they want to do. But I mean, for me, like my feed is for my clients. Like I don't really cross post on a lot of other things because I don't feel the need to. Like, you aren't going to be my client. You live too far away, right? Well,
Right.
also, I know that are you allergic to the
Yeah.
lashes? Okay, that's one thing that is so random, and I'm going to say this right now, but I was like, that's one random thing that has stuck with me about you because I was like, I'm always like, oh my God, lashes like so good. And you were like, oh, they're these. And I was like, what? Like, that's amazing. And it really influenced me whenever I removed my lashes recently. So, like, thank you. Because these are like, I mean, mine aren't quite as thick, and I just learned how to put them on underneath today.
Oh, good
So,
job. They look great.
and I just used shorties, but I'm like, oh my God, I love this. I love that we have options. And I'm like, and I can look as fabulous as Tress. So
Thank you. I'm obsessed with my lace it up lashes. Like I went for years without being able to have lashes on, and that's a whole story in itself. I worked unsafely with expired glue for the majority of my career because we didn't know any better, right? So I didn't get to wear lashes. I wore strip lashes all the time, but I didn't get to wear lashes for a long time. And it's funny because like when segment lashes came out to be applied to the natural lashes and they were considered DIY extensions, right? Quote unquote. I am one of the people who like freaked out about it. I
Yeah,
was
we were
like,
like,
no,
oh,
this
that's
is
so unhealthy for the
unacceptable.
lashes. Yeah.
They're
Trust
gonna
me, I
damage
have
the
thought the same
lashes.
thing. I'm like, how can
Right.
people wear these for a week? That's dumb. That's what I
Right.
started
And
with in school.
yeah. So that was until I started testing them, and like I
Mhm.
learned the technology behind them, and I learned how you apply them and remove them matters. And like literally my natural lashes look just as great as they ever have
Mhm.
without anything
It
on
gives
them.
me so much hope.
But but I get to wake up with lashes. Like I just threw a fresh set on today and I made them
Love.
a little bit wispier than I did before. I like that like blackout mega volume, but that can't surprise anybody. So yeah, I don't remember why we're here, but
Well,
you're
that's because I said that that's one random thing that I remembered about you. And it's just stuck with me because I'm pretty sure you told me that like 2 years or 3 years or something ago, maybe 2 years or something at LashCon when I first like
yeah.
maybe introduced myself to you.
I know I remember
And
your blue eyes like so clearly. I was like,
yes,
gosh,
it's
with your reddish hair and your
same to
blue
you.
eyes,
Yeah.
it's striking.
And that was something I was thinking about. Like, I try to be really present in the conversation, but I'm going to do like a little episode on introverts in an extrovert world soon. And I think that this is kind of something that can also be like use for people when you're thinking about like approaching people at like the lash conference or even on social media and you're feeling like a little intimidated because you think like this person probably is not interested in talking to you. And it's here's the thing is like people think that I might be like really outgoing. I can make myself that way. And especially in situations sort of like LashCon where I've been there since the beginning, I'm more comfortable there. And I know how it feels to be on the other side. So, but I have to make myself be more outgoing too sometimes, like I have to really like try and like just walk up to people like at the booths or whatever like you and be like, I'm Abby, and just like get over myself. And knowing that you might also be somebody who is introverted and has, like you said, you had social anxiety. I'm like, oh my gosh. So here, all of us are just standing around being our little socially anxious selves, like being afraid to talk to each other. And it can keep us from like forming really cool relationships when all we have to do is just be like, hi.
Yeah, seriously. And it's funny because like I'll stand there and I'll have people come up to introduce themselves to me, right? But I am naturally an introvert with an extrovert's job, and so sometimes I am like I've had people tell me like you're always so busy, like you always have so many people around you, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't come be by me too and meet all of the people that are by me at that time. Or like I've had people tell me they didn't want to come meet me because I was standing alone. and
like,
like
what kind
maybe
of weird projection is that? Like, stop
maybe
it. That's your
I
shit,
like
people.
yeah, like maybe I didn't want anybody by me. And I was like, I'm
Because
just
they
like,
feel the same way.
yeah, I'm just like having my little introvert moment and breathing and like trying
Yeah.
to clear my brain space for talking to the next person because there's going to be hundreds more because that's what these events are about. They're about connection, they're about
Yeah.
meeting people, they're about like networking and forming relationships and I guess it just makes my heart so sad when people are like, well, I didn't come up to you because
Yeah.
and then we never got to like have that connection. But I feel like since you bring the topic up as an introvert, something I have tried to do, like I went to LashCon last year by myself. So I wasn't with Lashbox. I
Oh,
just like
okay.
I went by myself. And I had a couple of friends, like I was like, hey, come with me. Because I don't really want to be by myself, but I wasn't
Yeah.
there like at a booth
With
or
the
anything.
company. Yeah.
And and it was so cool because for the first time I got to go around and go to the booths and introduce myself to people and be like, hi, like it's nice to meet you, or tell me who you are, or tell me about your business. And I was like, oh yeah, I get how this is intimidating for people to want to open up and say hi and introduce themselves. And as an introvert, it's hard.
Yeah, I have done the same. I like my first couple of years, there was especially like one year where I was like, oh, why didn't you do that more when you had time? And I like kind of, beat myself. I was like, you really like could have done more of that. But you also see like some of they'll be kind of busy sometimes. So I'm kind of like, let me just pick and choose when I'm going to go say hi without like really being interested in buying product, like I don't bother them too much. But I did try this last year. I was pretty busy, but so I know I remember seeing you kind of like standing here and there and didn't even pick up that you weren't with Flashbox last year, but that's because I know I
Well,
was
we
running
just weren't
around
there.
a lot. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
they
we
they
just
weren't
weren't
there.
there. So like
Oh,
I'm with
okay.
Flashbox, like we just weren't there as like we didn't.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
I just like that it's such a blur. Like when I was telling Tress before we recorded that I work behind the scenes at the conference too. And I was like from one thing to the next, like half the time. And then, I find my people and I kind of like hang out with them too. But I did try to make a point to go around and just like say hello and just tell people like their booth is cute or ask them about their product. Like, especially there were lots of newer people that I have never met or heard of or whatever. And so it's just cool to like get to know their stories and when they have a moment to chat. So, and yes, I do have to make myself and not like make it a thing. Like, yeah, it's a little awkward and they can be awkward too. Like some of those people are awkward too, so like we're all just standing there being awkward together.
I'm just overthinking it. Everybody's just
Yeah,
thinking too much and everybody just
totally.
needs to stop thinking.
Yeah. And like your favorite like lash quote celebs are just people too.
right?
And they most likely also just want like a moment in the bathroom to themselves, but like they'll also be really happy to talk to you and connect with you. So just like anybody that's listening and going, to conferences, just know that. Like
Yeah. Just like go right up to them and be like, hi, this is who I am, and hang out with them. Cause that's literally what they're there for. That's
yeah.
literally what I'm there for. I have, not gonna lie, I have hid in the bathroom before though, just to like
Yeah.
breathe for a few minutes. Like
I mean,
I went in a stall once, and it's usually at parties. Like parties are hard for me. Like the conference itself
a
is great.
lot of
Parties are hard for me.
stimulation.
But it was at LashCon, and I was alone right at the party. I didn't have anybody who came with me, and I went in the bathroom and I just stood in the stall. Like I just stood there. I took a picture. I took a selfie, sent it to my husband.
This is what I'm doing right now.
I was like, he's like, what's up? And I'm like, I'm breathing. And then like I took a few minutes, then I went back out and everything was great.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've done that in the middle of my work day when I'm like, finally get to go to the bathroom and I'm like, just like peace and quiet for a minute.
Totally
And amidst all the talking throughout the day. Yeah, I totally, yes, can totally relate. So what has been, I'll get back to like the topic ish. I mean, the sort of all the topic, but what has been really helpful or like pivotal for you in your journey of like self-discovery and like coming into where you are now, like where you are coaching other people?
Yeah. Well, it was coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can go back further than that though. For wow, probably the last 8 or 9 years, I've really been on a journey to improve myself. And I'm not trying to become somebody that I'm not. I discovered in my late 20s that mindset was really important and that I was really mean to myself.
Mm.
I discovered that I had grace for everybody else, but not me,
Mm.
And so being able to shift my mindset a little bit started then. And I remember standing in my old house in Minnesota with like a cup of coffee in my hand, looking out the window, and a thought came through my head, and I stopped it. And I was like, no, no, like it was like, I don't know, like
Not
you're so
today.
dumb because of
Yeah.
XYZ, like you should have blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But I just stopped myself and I interrupted myself in my head. And I was like, no, like I don't have to accept that. That's not truth. And so it really started back then. And it's been a spiritual journey for me. It's been a professional journey. I have still failed a lot, a lot, a lot on the way. There have been so many tears, and that's okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. And it was about a year ago now that I went to Lash Fest in Toronto, and my coach now, his name is Ben Owen. He spoke at Lash Fest Toronto,
Okay.
and I loved how he got up there. It was called the confidence injection, his talk, I think.
Cool.
And I loved how he got up there and he literally just served people in how to gain confidence. He didn't sell anything. Like he didn't sell anything. He just showed up and taught people how to be more confident, and like pulled back a few of the layers on the things that make us doubt that, right? I sought him out afterwards, and I don't usually go try to like connect with speakers because I'm like, they're busy. I understand. I'm like that too. So anyways, I sought him out though, and I just thanked him for his message. And it was crazy because we stood in the hallway talking for about a half hour. He asked me questions and gave me, I don't want to say advice, but gave me insights
Mm-hmm.
so much in that half hour without asking for anything in return,
Mm-hmm.
that I was like, I need to find out more about how that works. Because I now knew what my next like 3 steps needed to be professionally.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I
And
love
I had
that.
just talked with him in a hallway.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to him afterwards and we set something up, and he's been my coach ever since, right? The amount of breakthrough that I've been able to achieve in my life personally, like personally mostly, which has led to professionally, even though I approached him about professional things, right? Changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
And what I value the most is if you're looking for a mentor, or if you're looking for a coach, right? Like he's definitely a coach for me. I whatever. We can talk about the difference later if you want to. But for me, it was learning that I had the answers within myself, and he helps draw them out of me and give me the tools that it takes to apply them. Makes sense? So it's not like I have somebody sitting here telling me what to do and how to live my life and how to show up at work and how to show up on social media. It's like literally walking through what are the next moves that I want to make. And I'm the one who has the answers, you know, and it's always done with like such kindness that I don't know, like I just want to keep being coached by him forever because I've had so much breakthrough in it. But I've also heard, you know, people hire coaches, and I've now that I'm talking with people and they're interested in me being their coach, I've had a lot of people tell me they're really negative experiences with coaching. And that breaks my heart, and that's hard for me. And I guess it's just like anything else. Like I've heard a lot of people tell me their lash stories about having horrible
it really
experiences
is the same,
lashes.
right? Yeah. That's a good parallel because because being in the lash industry, yeah, it's like, oh, well, I didn't learn anything from this one, or, you know, or like this one was the best one ever, or whatever. People are just giving up their hard-earned money. Boy, I have so much experience with this.
Yeah.
But you know, and in the end, like if you have had a bad experience, like what are the lessons you can take from that? You know, there's always a fucking lesson, whether you like it or not. Sometimes they're just very expensive or impact, you know, you in several different ways. We were talking about this earlier, is like the trends that I'm seeing, like the shifting, and people are definitely becoming more aware of the more manipulative and like, I don't know, just showy bullshit that comes from the coaching industry. And like I've seen so many different types, and what appeals to me now is so very different. But like you don't know that until you know. You don't know that until like you've seen it sometimes, or maybe even experienced it. So I mean, if you have been in a shitty coaching situation, I'm sorry, and don't worry, you're not alone. But luckily,
I hit the jackpot right away. Like I hadn't experienced coaching before. And so my experience with it now has shown me that that's the kind of coach I want to be.
Yes.
Because if I had tried to do this 5 years ago, I probably would have been kind of pushy and very opinionated. And I've learned that I need to pull myself out of it.
Yeah.
And let them learn from my experience, but mostly from their own answers with like what they're choosing and they're deciding.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really like allowing people to see the power within themselves. Sometimes you do need somebody. It's really helpful to have like a second brain to kind of help like shine the light on those things and show you where, like, make you kind of question your own, you know, limiting beliefs and the stories that you've been telling yourselves yourself that's been keeping you from like that vision in your head that you said that you had, and like that I have too. And it's kind of continual work, and it is so, what I'm hearing here is it's just like so key to have support and to have the right support. I love that you've had that experience and that it has been able to shape you in a way that now you can give that to other people, you know, give like a really good experience to other people. And as you see like some of the other weird shit that's going on, it's like it just highlights like, nope, this is what's for me. This is how I want to help people and how I want them to feel when they're with me, and how I want to feel when I'm with them and when they leave me in this program and all of that. And I think that really comes across in your content as well, just so you know.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. It's funny because like I've connected with a lot of people who have expressed guilt over not following through with what they learned from a coach that they chose to work with. Or they're like, okay, I'm not following their exact, you know, plan for me. And it's like they don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's so important is like when you're looking for a coach, look for somebody who literally tells you that they're showing up to serve you and what you need and what you want to work on. That's so important, because you and I and every other coach out there in the world can have our own agenda for days. And it doesn't mean that that is the journey somebody else should be on.
Absolutely. As a person in the health and fitness industry, like you have to 100% learn how to meet people a little bit more where they're at rather than where you would like them to be or your expectations or whatever. And also people project that on to you as well, like you're supposed to be this thing, but and yeah, so it's kind of hard because you're just like, well, you said you want this, so like here's the thing, and like this is how you do it. But it's everyone's journey is so individual, so I think that's such a great point. And just like do your due diligence is what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah But it's funny, I feel like so many people get caught in a sales funnel, and I have my own very clear opinions about sales. I love sales when they're done out of service, and people are led to make their own decision instead of like pushed into a decision. But that's a different conversation. But it's funny because I was talking to somebody about a sales funnel, because I'm working on building like a funnel page right now for the social group, like we talked about earlier. And it's supposed, like, to me, it's supposed to feel good the whole time. Like my sister was like, okay, but that, like, you're really building a website that looks like that? And I was like, well, here's the deal. It's meant to get rid of anybody who it's not right for. And it's meant to be there for the person who it is right for. You know what I mean? So I was like, the reason that I'm creating this is to eliminate, not to necessarily like draw tons of people in and like push them into something. And it was funny because she just stared at me. She was like, wow. And I was like, no, it's cool though, because like I've found myself stuck in sales funnels for coaches or for programs or whatever. And I fully acknowledge that I am in a funnel and I like it. And I'm like, cool, I'm just going to keep on spiraling in because I want to see where this is going. And I want to see.
Oh, same. From an outside perspective, when I'm not like, I can really appreciate a lot of the points of these things. Like, I mean, if even though I may not have had the nicest things to say about some of the experiences that I've had, well, I don't know, like I just have, there's the good and the bad, right? But even I can sometimes appreciate from an outside perspective, like all the goings on. And maybe not necessarily in some cases, but yeah, I've been on a sales page and been like, man, this is a really well done sales page. Like, let's just see how far I have to scroll until I get to the buy now or the third buy now or the eighth buy now. And I'll just be like, man, this is really in depth. Sometimes I'm like, I'm checked out about halfway through, or I'm just really into it. And I can totally appreciate that from an outside perspective. So I think it's funny. I'm kind of fascinated by some of that stuff. It doesn't mean I want to participate necessarily, but it's like
I let myself be sucked into one because I'm writing a book, and well, it's almost done, but it still has a ways to go. And I value transparency like above all else, basically. And so I ended up on this webinar from Instagram, and I knew where I was going because I know what free webinars do. And the cool thing was, and I'm following this example as I'm like building my website and building my pages. He looked right at the audience camera, and was like, you are in a sales funnel and this is the top of it. And the intention is, if this is right for you, it is going to feel good the entire way through this process. And it ends with an interview to see if you are applicable for this, because we don't take everybody. And he's like, and no part of this process, because like you're in a sales funnel, no part of this process should feel like bad or icky to you. If this is the right program for you, you should like it the entire time. And I was like, I think I love you.
Yeah, I love that too. And I feel like I'm seeing more people, just be like, hey, this is what's up. Like, this is what's going on. And at the end of this, like in full transparency, there's going to be an offer. And I'm loving it.
And
too.
I for sure bought it. It's the only funnel I have followed all the way through. And actually was like, okay, let's go. Let's do it.
I love that. So on the topic of social media, because this is your wheelhouse really, is like, so when people are finding themselves caught in like a scroll hole of, and you're just like scrolling, and you realize like how shitty you start to feel. You're like, and that's like a comparison. It's definitely like giving some of your power away to what you're seeing and leaving you not feeling very good. And I don't believe social media needs to be like that. It can be a place where you can feel good about your interactions and like what you're viewing. But what's some actionable tips like that you would give somebody that's like catching themselves in that type of thing often?
Yeah. So I think what people fail to understand, or maybe I can use different words. I think what people may not understand
Mm-hmm.
is that the algorithm is giving you what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like hard reality when we are stuck in like that doom scrolling situation and we're comparing ourselves and we use the excuse that we're looking for inspiration for our
Mm-hmm.
next reel, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
not real. What we're doing is we're giving our brain what it's used to getting, which is comparison and it's self-doubt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the algorithm, the Instagram algorithm, is giving it to us because it knows that that's what our tendencies are. So what people don't understand is they can curate social media to work for them instead of against them.
Mm-hmm.
So we can train it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the way that I start to train my Instagram, and like, by the way, my feed is full of fluffy animals and funny things.
And I'm like cats, Henry Cavill, and
Yeah. Oh, I love him. Yeah.
like
so so we have this ability to go, okay, if there is a specific person, company, individual, whatever, that's triggering for you, and by triggering I don't mean like sets you off, I mean like makes you go, wow, I'm never going to be good enough. Wow, I'm never going to measure up. Wow, I'm not worthy of what they have. You go to their page, you hit the follow button, and you hit mute.
mm-hmm.
And you immediately mute the people who make you feel bad about yourself, even if it's me, is what I tell people. And I've actually had somebody break down in tears with me because she's like, it is you.
Oh,
And I was like, great. So I took her phone and I muted
laughing in
myself for her.
awkwardness here. I'm like, that's
Right.
awful.
And I was like, that's fine. Like, this is good. This is healthy for you. I have had to mute some of the most inspirational accounts and people out there because it's made me wonder if I'm inspirational enough. Are you kidding me?
When half of that shit is recycled quotes anyway.
Yes, it is. It is, right?
We're all saying the same things in different ways, and I think that that is so important to it's and that's okay,
It
because like
is.
the people that need to hear it your way are going to find you. Sometimes you're saying things in a specific way that really hits with somebody, and there are people like that for me, and then there are people who I'm just like, well, I can tell that's like not really an original thought and I'm okay with it, but like,
Right.
or I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like maybe it just feels too like filler,
Yeah.
doesn't feel like as often like it's coming from the heart or something like
Right.
that. Because I know that I've had thoughts that are similar to other people, but you have to work through that and like just realize like I still have something valuable to say, and this is the way I want to say it, and this is what's on my heart today.
Yeah.
And so really just agreeing with you
So what we
in
were
a long
talking
way.
about in my social group on Monday was because people are like, well, my content's not original. And I'm like, cool, who's your content directed at? Right? Is it directed back at the other people in your industry? And unequivocally, most of them said no, right? And I was like, all right, so is it directed at your clients and potential clients? Yeah, okay. How many lash artists do you think they follow?
Yes, this is the point.
Like, all of your content is going to be shocking and awesome to them, like
Yeah.
because they're considering you, right?
Shocking and
And
awesome. I love it. Yeah, it's so
they're gonna
true
be like,
though.
there's different curls of lashes.
Yeah. And even if they
There
are,
are.
like, who cares? I mean, what? Maybe
Right.
they're following like a handful. They must be really into lash people. Like that might be a red flag if they're following too many people because they might leave you. But like,
Right. Yeah.
just kidding.
That's funny.
There might be a
But
jumper.
like the other thing with that is like, so I'm like, okay, if your target audience, right, is actually wanting content from you and they don't care if some other lash artist 3 states away posted it yesterday, right? Like everybody's posted a picture or a video of somebody blinking. Awesome. I just did it last week.
Yeah.
I had no problem with the fact that a million other people have posted somebody blinking on their Instagram with new lashes on. No
Yeah.
problem.
And I
Right?
also find that even if people have seen, this is kind of a generic statement, like a broad statement. It seems like even if people have seen a meme once or twice, they're okay with seeing it another couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to check out a little bit faster unless one's really like a really good take on it. But I'm also like in that world and
Right.
like social media management and creator and business part, like I'm kind of in that. So when
Mm-hmm.
I'm following a lot of lash artists and I see the same shit over and over, I'm like, oh my God. But if it's for clients,
You
they're
don't know
not,
what here.
they're gonna be like, oh, that's so cute. She's like showing her personality or whatever,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now, if it's for other lash artists, that's a different situation. Like
Sure.
we live in an industry where people are obsessed with giving education and being educators. And I always like say that I'm honored to work in an industry that's like so obsessed with like people expanding their knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's incredible. But yeah, if you're working on posting for other lash artists, I feel like the most important thing there is using your own voice because nobody else has that.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think
So
that's really important. And there's so many ways I can go with that because like being able to find your voice, like you're already talking about, like getting to know yourself and being true to yourself and using your voice, like actually, especially like getting on a talking reel and actually voicing your opinion or getting on a podcast. Like I'm a freaking big fan of podcasts too.
yeah,
It is so powerful because it's so healing. Like you're actually using like a lot of different parts of your body and like there's nervous system stuff, but like you're speaking your truth. And it just is so powerful. And it's a really incredible way to connect with people. And I feel like, maybe talking reels are a little bit overlooked or underrated. And I know like we're in a visual industry, but I just think like you being able to sit down and face to face, like say your shit to somebody else is like, it's fucking powerful.
yeah,
We do that with clients all day, but their eyes are closed. So it's it's a little bit easier to talk. I have found this is one thing that I have can acknowledge is that I can share a lot of stuff with people when their eyes are closed, and they can share a lot of stuff with me when their eyes are closed because we're not like there's not that vulnerable like eye to eye connection. But if
yeah.
you try to talk to me like in the eye, like face to face, like I'm like struggling to be comfortable, like
Yeah, and
I'm
I'm that
like
person who like looks deep into your soul as you're telling me everything. So yeah,
yeah. So I'm like, I really like if it's me sharing, I'm like, and if it's somebody else, I'm like, I'm okay with it. But I've just found that so interesting. And that's a part of my own like little journey with like vulnerability and blah, blah, blah. But so I like just got off on a tangent, but
okay. No, if
naturally.
one of the things that I hear a lot is that people don't like their voice, right? And I don't think
Mm,
most of us are born liking our
yeah.
voice,
I'm
right? But we just get
accepting of
used
it.
to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I
But
don't
I
think it's
feel
bad.
like people have a hard time getting on camera and being who they truly are,
Mm-hmm.
both physically, like without filters, and mentally and emotionally and whatever. And the funny thing is, I had this huge realization after the first like big speaking engagement I ever did, and I saw all of these pictures, and they were like double chinned, and like I looked cross-eyed in one of them.
You're like,
And
shit.
they're like, I make crazy facial expressions while I talk, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like snap, 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 the camera gets them. And I had a really hard time with it. And suddenly I was looking at these pictures and I was face apping them religiously, like just I was fixing all of the problems, right? And I was like, oh wow, all of the people in that audience already saw this. They already saw all of my bad angles. They already experienced what the texture of my skin looks like when they're up close with me. They know that my eyeliner was like uneven, whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
all of these people already saw this, and I was okay showing up in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't I show up as me in this world too? In
Mm.
the social media world too?
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is though? Is it
I
because
think
it's
comparison.
well, and then like because it's on social media forever and because of all the fake filters and the
I think we're just trying to compete. We're trying to like keep up with the Joneses. Wow, that's an old saying. But like I think we're just trying to, do what we've seen other people do before. And we look at them and we're like, wow, she's so perfect. I want to be perfect like that. Unfortunate news flash, nobody is. Not even that person.
Well, and even when you're speaking and people see you from that angle versus the freaking pictures and whatever angle that is, that's so different too.
It
And
is,
I'm a
but
very expressive person. So I'm like one of those, like, I would be trying to manage my face, like,
right.
I'm like, don't be crazy.
Right. And it just like so at the last
That's what
event,
people love about other people too,
it
If
is.
you looked like a robot and you had no expression and you were just like, maybe Botox to the nth degree, like you couldn't move your face, like how would people connect with you?
Right. So think about your best friends, right? Do you love them when they are so put together and perfect? Or do you love them when they said something stupid, you both laugh so hard, you snort, and then like one of you trips and falls, right?
Yeah.
That's the time when you are more endeared to each other and enjoying each other's presence more than ever. And it's when we're imperfect. It's not when we're perfect.
That's when we're being humans.
Right. Because we like it.
Yeah.
We like seeing that other people are humans. Like, so it's like, yes, I still try to show up and put my best foot forward. And I'm building this new little Instagram account. And it's so funny for me because I'm like, what? Like, I'm still every day, I'm still fighting myself.
Yes.
Going, no, this doesn't need to look like an influencer. I just need to show up.
It is literally like your work in practice, like as you're doing it. Yeah.
I'm having to do it every single day right now. And I'm like, whoa, I have to take my own advice.
Yeah. Sometimes I see people using filters and I'll like in their stories, and I'm like, oh, what's that one look like? What would that make me look like? I know I have a lot of texture of big pores and da 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 da. And I'll be like, wow, that shit makes me look so like not like I'm like by all means do whatever you want because it obviously fits. It obviously does different things to different people's faces. There's some that I can use and I'm like, it's just subtle enough, but some of them I'm like, I am like, like going back, back and forth. And I'm like, that's definitely like absolutely not what I look like so smooth and like weird and it looks like AI. It's just I'm like, but there's some I can use and then there's some I'm like, oh man, I wish I could, but it just looks really weird on me and I don't know how and I am I find humor in that too, where I'm like, I think if I posted that, it would just be because I'm like, this is comedic, like how
it is
ridiculously filtered this is.
I have no problem with them. Sometimes they can lead to freedom, right? Like if you're not showing up at all on your Instagram feed and a filter 100%. Is what make you do that to connect with your audience, have at it, babe.
Listen, right? I'm using a ring light right now. I've got fake lashes on. Like I
tell people I use the original filter all the time. My face has makeup on it.
Yes.
Like there's not a huge difference there. It's when it's interfering with your mental health and you're not okay with who you are in the mirror because of who you are in the filter.
Yeah.
To me, that's when the breakdown happens. And that's when we need to like give ourselves space and start to heal from that. So like, do I have days in the morning that it's 5:30 because I try to get up at 5:30 every day. It's 5:30 in the morning. I snap a selfie, I put it on my story. And will I filter it sometimes because I am dead tired? Yeah. That's fine. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have makeup on. I have a ring light. I have 2 extra lights over here that are like the filter, like the soft lights.
Ooh,
and I'm still looking at myself going, wow, you look really yellow today, Tress. Like, whatever.
Well, and I actually, that's so funny you say that because I just switched my lighting setup a little bit, which is sort of, I mean, the ring light is huge in this space that I'm in to do this, but my lamp light, like I was feeling like I was too yellow in my video compared to like what, like, so I'm kind of looking and I only do a little bit of video for my podcast anyway, but there might be at some point where I get around to like backlog uploading to YouTube. And I don't know, I just was like, became conscious. I'm like, why do I look so tan and yellow compared to the other people? And I was like, well, let me bring my bigger, like, cause I was using a little ring light, but it just wasn't enough and blah, blah, blah. So now I have my big one. So, but I also, there's something to be said for that for like video quality too. So, I mean, like, there's some different, but yes, if it does make me look a little better, then like,
you look great.
Well, and so, yeah. And so you can see me and my reactions too. Otherwise it'd be kind of like, there'd be weird light over here and weird shadows and yeah, I mean, I still listen. I'll just be honest. I still care about showing up in the best light sometimes.
Right. And we're in the beauty industry. So it would be weird if
Yeah.
we didn't, you know, like
Also
we're
true.
here to make people feel
Hmm.
beautiful, right? And
Yeah.
feel confident and feel good about what they see in the mirror. Like
Yeah. But I
I
will
can
also tell you every single fucking thing that I did to get here.
what oh,
I
right,
will
right,
tell
right.
you every single thing
Right.
that, like, I was like, listen, I curled my hair. I've got fake lashes on that I struggled to get onto. I was listening to Smartless while I got them on. I was laughing. I got the
I'm
lip
getting Botox
listed.
this afternoon, you know. I'm
Yeah.
super open about that too. But one of the biggest compliments I feel
Yeah, I
like
love
I get
Botox
though, and it makes
too.
my heart a little bit sad, is people will meet me and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you look the same way that you do on Instagram." And my heart just sinks because it means that they've met people that don't, you know, like
Hmm.
we don't actually know these days who we're coming face to face with when we meet
So
them
weird.
if we met them on Instagram first.
So, how do you, speaking of like your 5:30 a.m. wake up time, and because this is a wellness podcast and we're talking about wellness in general and like mental health, but like self-care wise, what are some of the things that you do to care for yourself and your well-being? Like you're traveling, you're training and coaching, and then also, you have a personal life. So, what are some of the things that you do to sort of stay grounded and take care of yourself now these days?
Okay. There's a list. I'm going to try to make it fast.
Yeah.
Maybe not fast, but not lengthy.
Hmm.
One, I learned active meditation. I can't sit and meditate and like, oh, I can't do it. Like my brain will be
Hmm.
everywhere. I had some of
Hmm.
my best book writing days when I was trying to meditate because I was writing instead because ideas were popping in my head. So it wasn't
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
So I started doing active meditation, and it's something that my counselor taught me when I was going through a period of extreme stress, and I just couldn't quiet my mind. And so, what we do is basically, she's like, take something that you do every day, and it's going to become a ritual for you, and you're going to focus on the sight, the sound, the touch, and the smell of everything that's happening. So, I started it with my like morning espresso routine.
Love it.
So I'd go out to the kitchen, and every single step I would do, I would like feel what's under my fingertips, and I would like hear it when it's like scraping against the counter or like clinking down on the counter, or every step of the process I focused on the sense of it instead of like letting my thoughts run rampant without me as my coffee just won't brew fast enough. A million things to do. And that led to being able to do that with other things throughout my day. And so I will literally have times now, and my brain never used to be able to be quiet before. I will have times now that I will just walk through my kitchen and I'm feeling the floor beneath my feet, and I like run my hand along the table and I breathe deeply and I feel the sunshine on my face. And there's so many things that you can use active meditation for, and it quiets yourself.
Hmm.
And then when you move on to whatever you're moving on to next, it's not from a chaotic state, it's from a peaceful state.
Hmm.
So that was one of the huge things for me for self-care, because it means that I can take care of myself at the beginning of the day and through my day and at the end of my day. The other thing
I
is,
love that so much.
right? The other thing is deep love time. And this is something that my coach taught me when I was expressing that I felt like I didn't spend enough time with my family, or I didn't prioritize them enough because I was always working. And that's a me problem. I want to be really clear about that. I've just had workaholic tendencies forever. Like I can't blame that on anybody else. Nobody forced me into that. I need to be really clear about that. But when I would be in that state, he was like, okay, like realistically, how much time do you feel like you can put your phone down, you can flip it over, or not even have it in the room with you, and you can commit time to like deep love with your husband and your son. And so what that meant was like genuine interaction with them, undistracted interaction with them. And it hurts me so bad to say that in the beginning I was like 15 minutes. I can do that for 15 minutes tonight without it feeling overwhelming. And he was like, great, let's do 15 minutes. And then it extended to 30, and then it extended to an hour. And eventually it got to the point where I was able to, it'd be 5:30. I'd flip my phone over on the counter and I'd ignore it for the rest of the evening.
That's incredible.
And, it took time. Like, it took time. And now I'm back in a place where like, that balance is a little upset again, because I'm doing a new thing and I'm working with clients and we're having conversations via text message, and that's great. But I now have such a different grip on it.
Yeah, your awareness is completely shifted.
And my perception is different. And the fact of the matter is, I didn't want to understand it this way, but like, I was working that much because I wanted to.
Yeah. And then it's like people get so used to that and that busyness. And I mean, for some people, it can be very much a distraction or kind of like a coping thing or whatever. But
I wore it as a badge of honor. Busyness was a badge of honor for me.
That's definitely a thing for ladies. And especially like, listen, I love building business. Like, I love it. Like being in it. I like creating things a million times over. Like, I actually kind of love it. Same. But there also has to be that like kind of come to Jesus with yourself of like, where is this taking away from, or is it affecting, or, like, how am I not feeling that I want to feel, or what am I not doing that I want to do, that, like this is maybe kind of getting in the way, and like, how can I switch these things? Yeah. And that, my value doesn't solely come from the fact that I'm just so busy. Like, right. And that is is that like not an identity thing with lash artists and maybe, like hairstylists? I would say almost the whole beauty industry. It's like, because we are client based, like if you aren't busy, like you must suck. So then when you're busy, you're like, I'm very valuable and I'm just going to keep doing this, because otherwise like you lose yourself in that. I 100% went through that myself. So,
and the cool thing is I went through it with work in a different way.
Yeah.
But I have lash artists at trainings that'll look at me and be like, I'm not fully booked. And I'm like, okay, are you as booked as you want to be? And they say yes. And I'm like, then you're
fully booked. Yeah.
Right. At my busiest, I still didn't take more than 5 clients a day.
Oh my God.
Or 4 days a week.
And that's like, because, and I did more, but like, yeah, I'm like, now my max is, I mean, like maybe 5 if I had a nice long break and some other breaks in there. I'm like, but like 4, like you just have, especially once you've been doing it for a while, you have to find the pace that works for you. And it's not what works for everyone else.
Yeah.
It's like what works for you and what keeps your body happy and you mentally happy and you able to like live your life, and that's going to just look different for everyone.
Yeah. I know some people who can take 12 clients a day and they're happy.
Fuck that. Oh my God. Fuck that for everything it's worth. Like, unless you are working literally 2 days a week and that feels like a hospital shift to me, like really? Why?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you what are you charging? And like, what is your health like? Do you have time for anything else? Like, what's going on? I mean, I get like, listen, if you got to hustle, but boy, you better be taking care of yourself. We already talked about this. You better be taking care of yourself, because you cannot do that forever and it not affect some part of your life. Promise. I wasn't even doing that. And I was like, tingly fingers, which is not great for a lash artist. Pain in my hips.
Completely numb.
Yeah, like that's actually not good.
Surprise, you shouldn't lash.
Welcome to carpal tunnel surgery when you're 32 or whatever, in 5 years, because there's a lot of people who are much younger than I was when I started. But like, oh my gosh. So this has been an incredible conversation, fairly wide ranging. And I love that, because I love conversations like that. So thank you for going down like every path with me. I love when I love when we can keep up with each other. And there's just so many different things that, well, actually, I do want to kind of circle back to when you're talking about the active meditation. And I love what that speaks to me is that you can literally, my big thing is like, you can find moments for self-care every minute of the day. Yeah. And it is stuff like that that brings you back to your body, back to the present, and like connects you more to yourself and your senses. And that helps you strengthen your intuition. It helps strengthen like your self-trust. It helps your energy and your clarity. And so you literally chose something that you were already doing every single day. And your counselor helped you like navigate this, but like you applied it to something you do every single day and took it
Right.
from there. And then you can apply it into other moments of your day as well. And that's such a great, like, for anyone listening, if you're just thinking like I'm just so busy, like that is how you start.
Mhm.
It's just like coming back to yourself in little moments throughout the day and like, oh hi, here I am. Here's me, not my to-do list, not the next thing. Here's
Yeah.
me, and here's the world around me, and this is what it is. And I love that with like being outside too.
Yeah.
So doing that in
Yeah.
nature.
I always say you can't live somewhere that doesn't exist, and that's the past and that's the future. And so
Mm-hmm.
like really all we have is like this moment that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you deserve to be able to come back to this moment and not have your thoughts be dwelling on every single thing you need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you don't take time to come back to right now, and I never knew how to do that before. And so that's what active meditation did for me, is it allowed me to learn how to enjoy the process of living and doing what I'm doing, and not just living for the things that are going to happen in the future.
Yeah, that anxiety cycle of like,
Yeah.
fuck. That's how I can best describe
Yeah,
it.
like you wake up and you feel like you're on a roller coaster all day.
Yeah.
It's not worth it long term. Like, are you
Mm-hmm.
still going to be doing that when you're 60? No.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you never
No,
stop
probably
living.
because your body will give out sometime. No, I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but like definitely when you start to work on like all the little things that can start to come up, the issues, I guess I will say, that bleeds into other areas of your physiological being. So like you get
Yeah.
inflammation and you have stored this and that and whatever, it starts to leak into your gut health, which affects your brain and your mental health, and then your hormones, and then this and that. It could come up in like actual physical pain. So there's a lot of different things to that. But then when you take that first step into getting to know yourself a little bit more and trying to work on like your mindset, that starts to bleed into every other area as well. So it's just those little simple things that don't seem so important in the lot. You don't think like it's big enough to make a change,
But
but consistently over time you realize like, wow, it was that. Just focusing on like enjoying making my coffee and being present with that, it seems so small, but like that bleeds into so much more improvement and like better health. I don't like to better, good, bad, whatever, but like better health,
it does. It
and that's
does.
important. If you want to show up for your people, whether you're a coach, lash artist, esthetician, like if you want to show up for your people and like not feel totally exhausted and drained and like resentful and irritable, like there's a lot of ways to look at, like there's a lot of things to assess there, but like it's important for you to take care of yourself is a point.
Yeah. And it's so much more worth it to start doing it now, like right now,
Mm-hmm.
instead of waiting until your body forces you to, because I was in that cycle for way too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've talked to a few lash artists. I actually really should just get more people on, just be like, tell me about how it was for you when you burned out.
Yeah.
Because it's
Actually, that
never
would be
really.
such a cool, like if you did like a compilation of that and made
Mm-hmm.
it a podcast, like just like talking to all of these people and getting their
Yeah.
stories. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I would listen to that and be like, wow, I have to change immediately.
Yeah, I have a couple. I have had one, and then the next one we were kind of talking more about outsourcing to sort of help with that. I have like at least one more, and I definitely will get more people on to talk about that because I know I'm like, listen, I know I can talk about it all freaking day long, but maybe you need to hear it from more than just one person and know that like you're probably experiencing some symptoms. Maybe most people, obviously that's very like general, but like you could be experiencing symptoms and like not even realize it because we just think like this is normal as an adult, or this is normal when you're building a business, and like actually no, you don't have to feel like shit.
Right.
So
Or be miserable all the time. You can
yeah.
actually enjoy life. It's allowed.
Yeah. And you can enjoy your business and not like it feel like it's such a freaking grind. I mean, there's going to be those grind moments, but you can kind of enjoy that and not be like,
Yeah.
which actually is a really great segue into my last question for you, which is sort of kind of maybe like a little two-parter, but what for when did you start doing lashes? When did you?
2006.
Okay, so I was 2008, and so we were kind of talking like social media wasn't like as
Didn't exist.
relevant
No, it
at
was fake.
all. Yeah,
Yeah.
and even when I joined, I was like, "Isn't this for college kids?" And
Yeah,
I was
same.
not in college. So, for if you were a newbie lash artist starting, young lash artist starting today in the world that we live in with the social media and all of that, and I mean, like, how much has the lash industry grown? Holy shit, it's so big now. What is some advice that you would give your young lash
Mm,
artist self?
okay. So, one, word of mouth is not dead. You can build an entire clientele still today without Instagram.
Amen.
So, focusing too much on that will exhaust you and deplete you. I would say choose a couple of people to follow on social media and do not follow every lash artist you find, because that will get you stuck in the comparison loop so fast that you will never want to post your own work. And I would say take as many people for free or extremely reduced model prices as you possibly can to get your skill set to a level where you're confident with it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's
That would be my advice.
pretty succinct. So tell me about the social group. Tell the listeners about the social group.
Okay, so when I jumped into the coaching world, I didn't expect to be coaching around social media. I don't know why. I didn't see it coming. But I saw that there was such a desperate need. So the social group came about because one day I was talking to my stories, like I was talking to all the people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, speaking of social media, it's hard. Maybe I should create a group for that. Like, let me know if you're interested. And it like
Yay. That's so
everybody
cool.
was like, yes. So the social group is something that it's a live 1.5 hour group coaching once a month. And I have a couple of them now because I don't want them to be too big. Like I want them to be interactive.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a support group throughout the rest of the month on social media. And it's beautiful because what we're doing is I'm not showing up and teaching people how to make their feed prettier and how to create trending reels and how to get more views and likes. The entire point of it is how to improve, maintain, and protect your mental health in the world of social media that people need to be in to continue to run and improve their businesses.
Mm.
And so while there is practical advice on posting and videos and that kind of thing, because there just has to be,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about how to go viral. It's about how to be so authentically you that you naturally attract your audience, your target market without any stress or overwhelm, because
Mm-hmm.
it's possible. It's
Yeah.
absolutely possible. So that's what it's about. It's a membership and there's no monthly there's no monthly minimum because all I want is for people to be happy. So like if they show up for a couple and they're like, great, I got what I needed and they want to go do their thing, great, they go do their thing. Like that's all I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it is. And I'm really proud of it. It's growing quickly. Like it's only been around for a month.
That's
We just
great.
had our second one, and the feedback that I got from it almost immediately was so extraordinary that I was like, wow, I just have to do this forever.
Yeah.
Because people saw real change and real transformation in a very short period of time, because I do my best to remove all of the stress and overwhelm from it and make it so easy to show up as them. And one of the things is like if you have 30 followers, but it's 30 followers in within 20 minutes of your salon, that is going to do more for your business than 3,000 followers around the globe who are never going to come see for your services. They don't
Yes.
care. They might watch,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
but that's not going to impact your business.
Mm-hmm.
And so being who we are and attracting people to who we are is going to impact our business. And so yeah, I'm teaching people how to show up authentically and like it.
I love it. I love it.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Congratulations. I mean, I just think that that's going to be like anytime that we can get a little support and have those perspective shifts, and the things that like, we don't necessarily, do people seek this out on the internet? We're looking for what's the next audio or the next template or the next this, or like what's so-and-so doing. And it's not necessarily like, you don't see as prevalent those like tips just like that, like how important it is to really understand who you're talking to and who your audience is. And, but in that very specific sense of the brick and mortar business,
Yeah. So
that's
I
such
don't
a
have a
great
lot
point.
of like big business like brand owners, you know what I mean? Like if somebody owns their own salon and they have tons of people in it and they have a social media manager, like that's not the people that need
Mm-hmm.
this group. The
Mm-hmm.
people that need this group are the one woman show who's trying to do it all, and it's like crushing overwhelm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. Thank
Mhm.
you for your service to the small business owners. I mean, like, because really we do try to do it all and we need all the freaking support that we can get. And
Mhm.
it's just so hard to play all of those different roles and keep your head above water, sometimes feeling like you're doing enough. And you probably are. You
You
probably are.
definitely are.
Yeah, you probably are. So like, but I love that you're there to support people through that process. And that's really cool. And I'm so glad that you wanted to come on and just share your experiences and wisdom with all of us today.
Thanks for having me. Like
Heck
this was so fun. I really appreciate it.
Yay. Heck yeah. I mean, I don't know. This is one of my favorite things. I mean, I built my business networking in person, brick and mortar business. I networked with local people. I built my business the first time that way. I've met so many cool people like through being at conferences. And I mean, I've literally gotten a job because I was at the booth. And then I knew somebody. So I was like kind of connected that way. But I also showed up to the booth and showed up to the party. And you just never know. And I also find that I get a lot of enjoyment that way with the podcast, is that I get to kind of, maybe where we wouldn't necessarily have the time or have the opportunity, unless I was really like, hey, do you want to get on a Zoom call and just like hang out? And I will do that with people.
I
Just
do that too,
like,
actually.
how
I
else
do
do you keep up with your friends around the world? I'm not really much of a phone person, but I want to sit there and like look at you and talk to you.
that.
So this is pretty comfortable for me, but the podcast also provides kind of that like outlet for me selfishly, that I get to, meet all these cool people and really get to know you and like hear more about your story. And so that's great for me too. So I appreciate all of that. And tell our listeners where they can find you on the social medias.
Oh, it's pretty simple. You can find me
Mm-hmm.
at tress.larson and at tress.lashboxla. So it's the same beginning for each, right? Tress, TRESS dot LA, and then they both come up because
Mm-hmm.
they're very similar.
Yes. Love
Yeah.
it. Well, thank you so much for being on the
Thank you.
podcast today. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you and everything you're doing with this podcast. So like,
Oh,
great job.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for tuning into the Beauty Pro Wellness Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes, leave a review, and share with your friends in the beauty industry. Beauty Pro Wellness Podcast is produced and crafted by Wonder Podcast Productions.